The speed to market of which we're able to do things now is just dramatically increased. 10 years ago, Netflix, Amazon, Apple were not at the bidding table for our media rights, and now that is the case today. And so you see the importance of being able to drive live customers. What you get in a stadium, you cannot replicate.
Joining me now in the studio, we have Guido, President and CEO of Elevate and CEO of the San Francisco 49ers. So busy time, running two different companies. Now you're here to talk on a panel about the pathways to profit in sports. So can you talk a little bit about how those pathways are changing nowadays?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. I think they're changing depending upon what league, team, institution that you're in. So you're right, later this afternoon I get to be on stage with my good friend Scott O'Neill, of course runs Live, and Danny Townsend and Mark Gannis to talk about media in sports. And so, you know, at Elevate, we serve over 200 different properties around the globe. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. What might be happening in the Premier League versus what might be happening in League One or La Liga or the National Football League or Major League Baseball. And they're all at different types of within their ecosystem, they're all in different places. You know, baseball just opened up last night. They have some headwinds as it relates to the regional sports networks and the media. The NFL is trying to embark on a global strategy now that, in my opinion, we're just getting started. We're call it the world's largest startup on the international front. So it's an exciting time in sports entertainment.
But in general terms, are we going to see a very different mix for most sports franchises in 10 years' time of revenue than they do today, or is it going to be pretty incremental change?
I would say incremental in relation to the club's IP rights themselves. Now, and what I mean by that is, if you think about the large pie, it's generally made up by media first, right? That's the largest part of the pie. Then it's the commercialization, or what you and I might call sponsorship. Then it's really the seating types, whether it's hospitality or general admission ticketing. I don't see that changing. How that pie is made up, I do see changing. Now, what we've seen in, call it, the last 5 years is sports teams acting more like media companies or real estate development. And so what you're going to hear later today is there is this strong push to look at sports adjacent mixed-use real estate. You know, whether what Stan Kroenke did down at SoFi or what Manchester United might be trying to embark on with their 100,000-seat stadium. These teams are now thinking about themselves as media, real estate, venture, and private equity arms. That is what's changing dramatically.
So talk about the stadiums themselves. The 49ers, you did a big redevelopment some years ago. How does that work in terms of really monetizing that asset? Because obviously, you know, a game every week or so is not really fully sweating that asset. So how do you think about that?
Well, I'm just on the heels of hosting Super Bowl 60 in our market this past February, and that's really what these stadiums have become. They become 365-day platforms, and so you're right. We only host 10 NFL games, and we frankly only touch 700,000 fans through those 10 games. And so whether you put concerts on, whether you put conferences like this on, and for us in the Bay Area, we've been able to host obviously now 2 Super Bowls. We'll be the only stadium later this summer to ever host a Super Bowl and World Cup matches in the same calendar year, which I'm really proud of. And what that does is it creates, I'd say, 2 things. On the 49ers perspective, it enhances our value proposition for anyone who wants to partner with us. We're just very different than another NFL team. On the second side, which is more our municipality and call it our civil responsibility, is it drives economic impact in our region, you know, upwards of the tune of $2 billion just in this past calendar year, due to all the people that are coming in.
So how many days a year do you actually use it for events?
Oh, wow. So we call them ticketing and non-ticketing events, and I think your fan base, your listeners or viewers will understand this. If you buy a ticket to a game or to a sporting event or a concert, that's roughly 25 events. Now, we are very much a small, mid-sized convention center. We do another 150 type events throughout the course of the year. So on average, consider the building being used about 200 times a year.
A lot's been talked at this event around AI and digital. What is the impact of AI on the franchises that you focus on?
I would say, generally speaking, now it's been nothing but a positive. If you look at the data and analytics on the sporting and player performance side, it is fantastic. And so there is tremendous treasure troves of data going back decades plus of player analytics. So how we might think about player safety or player performance or player scouting, that is dramatically changing. On the venue itself side, It's a little bit slower because inherently the hero feature is still going to be what happens on the pitch or the field or whatever it may be. But where it is impacting is in all your guest services, in your entry and exit into the building, how you might interact with food and beverage. And so that, in my perspective, is how we manage our G&A operations is really, really important. But frankly, we're looking at it from an advantage on the field side of our ledger.
So it's a huge opportunity to improve the customer experience, frankly, for you.
Very much so.
And also in terms of engagement, sort of engagement from fans, both in the stadium and off the field, in terms of the ability to immediately access stats, communicate with each other, share information, all these things.
I think what I would say to it is like frankly, it hasn't changed much for us. It's enhanced everything that we're doing. The speed to market of which we're able to do things now is just dramatically increased.
So the other thing that a lot of the digital technologies, more broadly than AI, have done is taken people's time. So a huge amount of focus going into, whether they're sitting watching Netflix or they're on social media, other things. It's been a huge shift of how people spend their time. Has that been a negative view, or is it more reinforced the power of the human connections and the human experiences that are not scripted and not staged and are actually, the human errors and the human amazing moments and all that? I mean,
the latter. Yeah, the latter. I would say, look, I'm blessed to be in sports and entertainment. The power of live is a real thing. I have 3 daughters, 17, 15, and 13 years old. And you're right. The only 2 things they consume live is sports and news. Yeah. Everything else is on demand. And so for us, if you look at what's happening within the media sector, I mean, just in the last 10 years, the National Football League has already gone through a tremendous, transformation. 10 years ago, Netflix, Amazon, Apple were not at the bidding table for our media rights, and now that is the case today. And so you see the importance of being able to drive live customers, live subscribers, and I don't think that's going to change. And frankly, I think Ari Emanuel said this really well on stage not that long ago, which is you cannot script sports.
Sure.
And so I don't believe we're going to, yes, there will be robots that play at some point in time, but the great part about sports is it has outsized fandom. What you get in a stadium, you cannot replicate. And so I think for me, selfishly, I'm glad that I'm in the sports and entertainment because while it's being disrupted, it's being positively disrupted.
So let's just dig into that a bit because I find this fascinating. So is anyone going to ever want to watch robots playing a sport? I mean, is that actually...
I've come to use the word never with great caution.
Okay,
but I don't think you can take hundreds of years of fandom and it's sort of the religious experience. I was saying this with Scott O'Neill last night at dinner, is you name me another place in the world where I can be an immediate stranger with the person sitting next to me. And if they're wearing the same color as I am high-fiving them. That does not happen anywhere. And I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Obviously, there's huge growth in audiences. In terms of demand for actual physical seats, has that gone up significantly as well?
What we've seen at Elevate, we study this quite a bit. What we've seen is there's a progression for more premium experiences inside stadia. What I saw in my first 20 plus years in this industry was there was effectively 2 types of seating in any stadia. There was what you would call premium or hospitality for your viewers and what you would call general admission. And similar to how the airlines or hotels have looked at this, where it's economy, premium economy, business, and first, what we're seeing is that's the same in the stadiums. What you're trying to create is sort of an aspirational journey for that customer where, my daughters might want to sit in a GA party zone. And as they get older, they might want to sit in a premium hospitality zone. And stadiums now, if you look at the sheer amount of infrastructure and the cost of these stadiums, I mean, we're talking about $2 and $3 and $4 billion stadium costs. They're going to have a mix of different hospitality options to meet with our customers where they're at.
You talked about streaming. Are we going to see the streamers dominate in 10 years' time, given the size of these companies and the balance sheets they have?
I would probably answer it a little bit differently, which is tell me what the definition of a streamer is, and then I'll give you that answer. Meaning, ESPN not that long ago would probably not have been defined as a streaming company. And Jimmy Pitaro and what he's been able to do through ESPN and ESPN Plus. And so what I think you'll find is whether you're traditional linear or you're currently streaming, that mashup will just change dramatically. I think in 10 years, neither one of us will be either saying linear or streaming. We'll just be saying media companies.
That makes total sense. International, you mentioned international. the Premier League, you've mentioned, has been incredibly powerful at globalizing the fan base of these English football teams. What is the opportunity to create a similar effect for the NFL and for those franchises?
I think we're woefully behind in the National Football League on this, and I think there's a lot that call it, American stadiums can maybe teach the rest of the world. But truth be told, the American business model has a lot to learn from internationally. And what I mean by this is, we're the owners of Leeds United. If you look at Leeds United might have current partners in their market within Leeds that sponsor and support the club. But they might also have partners in America, in Asia, in other parts of the world. And so where you're seeing this geo-targeting, depending upon where you're watching the game, they view it as global commercial partners. In the NFL, I was saying to you earlier, we only owned, up until 5 years ago, the IP, meaning the logo of the 49ers, within a 75-mile radius around our stadium. We were not incentivized, per se, to grow a global footprint. And so for now, what's changed in the last 5 years is the NFL has allowed teams to effectively adopt markets. And so for us, it's Mexico, the UK, and the UAE. And we're now able to commercialize our IP that goes right to our bottom line in those markets. My hope is we look at all markets the same, and we're not talking about bidding on specific markets. Yeah.
You mentioned you're hosting some World Cup games. Is this a moment where soccer really comes of age in the US? Is this going to be a big moment for soccer, and how much of a potential competitor is it to what you're doing?
I think it's a huge moment for soccer in America, or what I would call global football in America. I give Don Garber and team at Major League Soccer a lot of credit, but there's no question that it's behind from the other sort of big four leagues. And I do think this hopefully will be a coming out party. Americans, our cultures have changed, our demographics have changed. The global football world, we follow Premier League teams, we follow La Liga teams, we follow other teams. But in the markets in which Major League Soccer operates, they've done a tremendous job over the last 30 years building that fan base. I hope this is, quote unquote, the kicking off or the launch pad is of whatever the next 100 years of Major League Soccer is. You've seen it with the power of what Jorge Mas and who's done in this market with Messi and others. And I think, frankly, they're just getting started.
Final question. The latest edition of the FII Priority Compass report identified that 76% of people are happy with the direction of their life, and only 37% are happy with the direction of the wider world. So there's a gap here. How much do you think something like sport, that, as you mentioned, brings people together, creates community, not just around the fan base, but around their local environments, is something that can really help to continue to build that?
Oh, I say this all the time. I think we have a responsibility in our markets to give back to the community and bring people together. I'm proud of at the San Francisco 49ers, we have the largest foundation in the entire National Football League. We bring over hundreds of thousands of kids together, whether it's through STEAM education platforms or whether it's showing up on flag football. I think sports can be a true unifier. I truly do. And you hit on it. We are in tough times right now. And my hope is obviously we come out of those tough times and we come together as, frankly, not just a country, but multiple countries. And if sport is a way to do that, where I can show up in a stadium and root for my country, but I can also be respectful of the others rooting for their country, then we're all better off.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.